All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. Let's start out today talking about Michal Krizo. We've got some important updates on Michal at 7.5 weeks out, and this was posted on his new YouTube channel, which is just called Krizo. I highly suggest you go check it out. He's going to be posting updates on there every week leading up to his next show, which is what I want to talk about in this video. There's been a lot of confusion about how is Michal Krizo going to get into the IFBB Pro League? How is he going to qualify for the Olympia? Well, I've been talking to Michal's manager, Patrick, and the show that Michal is doing next, the show that he's 7.5 weeks out from, is the Amateur Olympia in Italy. That's October 8th. So that is the show where he will be attempting to earn his IFBB Pro card. And again, I really don't feel like he's going to have much of an issue earning that Pro card. Then after that, so this discussion about the Prague Pro. The Prague Pro is late October, so he's not doing the Prague Amateur because he wouldn't be able to get a Pro card there. So the Prague Pro is the show he's planning on doing after he earns his Pro card in early October if he wins that Amateur Olympia overall. Then he'll go on to the Prague Pro in late October, hoping to win that show. And then that show would qualify him for the Olympia. So October is really the month that we're looking at for Michal Krizo in terms of him really beginning to make an impact. And all this talk lately of Andrew Jacked, I think has got a lot of people excited about the potential that some of these guys have that have earned a lot of hype on social media, because we've seen a lot of times, in often cases like this, there have been a lot of guys in recent memory that have not lived up to the hype that they've gotten online. And recently, you've had guys like Nick Walker that had a ton of hype online and really delivered. Guys like Andrew Jacked that had a ton of hype online and then really delivered. I think Michal Krizo is going to be the next guy like that has a lot of hype online, and I think he's really going to deliver in actual competitions, because it's not like he doesn't have a competitive history to back it up. When he competed in the IFBB Elite Pro, even though the level of competition wasn't as high as it is here in the IFBB Pro League, he basically won everything. He was a really good bodybuilder competitively, and he was almost never beaten. Now he just has to carry that over to this IFBB, and I think he's going to do that pretty quickly. I don't think he's going to have any issue earning a Pro card, and I honestly don't think he's going to have much of an issue qualifying for the Olympia. The real question is, once he gets to that Olympia stage, how big of an impact is he going to make his very first time ever? I think he does have a couple of weak points. I would say his abs need to be a little bit tighter and deeper, kind of similar to Andrew Jacked. The back poses, I think, aren't his strongest poses, but his front double bicep, I think, is probably his strongest pose. I think he's almost unmatchable in that pose. The front double bicep is an incredible pose for him. His most muscular is probably one of the best most musculars in the game. He can probably hang with anybody in the IFBB from the most muscular. He's got some pretty strong side shots. His side tricep. His arms and his shoulders are just pretty much unmatched at this point. I think the biggest thing he needs to bring up is his back, the ab separation, and maybe a little bit of size to his chest. But I think right off the bat, he could be a contender for the top 6 at the Olympia. Him and Andrew Jacked both. I think Andrew Jacked could also be a top 6 finisher at his first Olympia ever. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about Michal Krizo's potential. And now that you know what he's doing, the Amateur Olympia October 8th and the Prague Pro in late October, how realistic do you think it is that he will get to the Olympia in 2022? Now, next up in the news, a recent physique update from Nick Walker hitting a front relax pose. We know that he's weighing close to 300 pounds in this update at 17 weeks out from the 2022 Mr. Olympia. Now, Nick Walker is a guy that really delivered on the hype after his pro debut. He was a guy that everybody was excited to see compete, excited to see on the Olympia stage. He was top 5 at the Olympia. He won the Arnold Classic. He won the New York Pro. And I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday. Is Nick Walker really that good to where he's going to be potentially top 3 or win the Olympia this year? Or was the year that he was so successful just a lower caliber of competition? And then I guess the other question too is, once you get these other guys next to Nick Walker, these taller guys, Krizo and Andrew Jacked, I believe, are both around 6'2", both significantly taller than Nick, but around the same size from a muscle mass standpoint. Nick's kind of, in my opinion, I think he's kind of maxed out his frame. I don't know how much more muscle he can actually add on, or where he could add it. And that's the question, is for Nick to improve at the Olympia, what needs to happen for him to go from 5th to 3rd, or 5th to 2nd, or 5th to 1st? What scenario does that happen? Where can Nick make enough improvements? Or is the answer that someone ahead of Nick from last year has to get worse while Nick gets better, conditioning-wise? And then when you put a 300-pound guy like Nick Walker, well, he's not going to be 300 on stage, but 300 pounds at 5'7" next to a guy that's 300 pounds at 6'1" or 6'2", like Krizo or Andrew Jacked, which physique is going to come out on top? And I think that's going to be an interesting comparison. And Andrew Jacked, I think, is a lot closer to 300 pounds on stage than Nick Walker was, and also a lot taller than Nick Walker. So I think it's going to be a very interesting call-out in that kind of 4 through 8 range at the Olympia. I think that's kind of where we're going to see Andrew, Nick, and Hunter, and possibly Krizo, possibly Ian Valliere. Guys like that are going to be in that 4 through 8 range probably. I still think that Hadi Chupin is going to be a top 3 guy. I still think Brandon Curry is going to be a top 3 guy. And I still think Big Ramy is going to be a top 3 guy. And again, that kind of takes us back to that question, is what needs to happen for somebody to break into that top 3? And I really don't think it's a question of Nick getting that much better. I think one of those guys has to be that much worse for Nick to crack the top 3. Because right now, I think if Brandon, Ramy, and Hadi are all 100% on, I don't see a 100% on Nick beating a Brandon, Ramy, or Hadi yet. Then you can take a look at this latest update from Hunter Labrada at 17 weeks out. And this is going to go by very, very quickly. These next 17 weeks, we're getting kind of in that zone right before the Olympia, where it seems like the Olympia is still forever away. And before we know it, the titles of these videos are going to be 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out, 2 weeks out from the Olympia. Then it's going to be Olympia weekend, and we're going to have a ton of Olympia coverage, so make sure you subscribe. But he looks pretty impressive here. And I think, again, when you look at Hunter, you got to ask yourself the same question about Nick. What can Nick do to improve to beat Hunter? Because I think what Hunter is doing to be more competitive with Nick is he's putting on some size. You can see that Hunter is, he looks to me to be significantly bigger than he was at this point in his prep for last year's Olympia. And I think Hunter is pretty aesthetic for a men's open guy. I don't think that he's maxed out his frame yet. So while Hunter, I think, has room to improve, again, I kind of put you back to that question. Where do you think Nick has a significant amount of room to improve? With Hunter, you can say significant improvement to his back is something that is needed. You could certainly say he could add some size. But that's the thing I worry about with Nick Walker, is how much more can he really improve? How much size can he really put on his frame? Or is it just a matter of him being about the same size, the same weight year after year, and trying to improve that conditioning? Now, next up in the news, there's a little bit of a further development with the Arnold Classic controversy. As you guys saw, they got a little bit of blowback for excluding women's physique from the 2023 Arnold Classic. Now, they are also excluding the women's figure category, which still leaves wellness, bikini, and fitness in terms of women's divisions at the Arnold, and classic physique, men's physique, and open bodybuilding as far as men's divisions at the Arnold. So now it's 3 divisions to 3 divisions, 3 main categories to 3 main categories, and that's not if you include a wheelchair for men's. And again, this time around, the criticism that I'm seeing is the same. It's like people saying the Arnold is misogynistic. It's like a sexist decision. They're not giving women equal opportunities, even though they have the same number of categories still, even after removing those 2 categories. And look, I think what people just aren't grasping here is that bodybuilding, the IFBB, these competitions, the Arnold Classic, they're all a business. Let's keep in mind that it was just 2020 that the Arnold was canceled, and Arnold himself had to put on the show and pay for the prize money out of his own pocket because the expo was canceled and shut down. People weren't allowed to attend the actual bodybuilding show, or attendance was limited because COVID was starting. And then in 2021, they had a limited expo and still had the show. That was when they postponed it to September. And then 2022, they had the expo, but attendance was way down. So in my mind, it really doesn't seem like much of a mystery or much of a controversy as to why the Arnold would be cutting divisions. I think it's pretty clear that the past few Arnold Classics, the Arnold either hasn't made much money, lost money, or barely broke even. So you've got to ask yourself, what do you think the real reason is that they would cut a division? Do you think it's that they're sexist or misogynistic, or simply that they're cutting the divisions that make the least amount of money in return for the money that they spend on it? When you're talking about the prize money and the travel arrangements for all the athletes in those 2 women's divisions, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars between those 2 categories that the Arnold is spending. The Arnold covers the travel for these athletes. So when you're talking about that, you're talking about the prize money. Do you really think that figure or physique are selling hundreds of thousands of dollars of tickets to the show in return for the money that the Arnold is spending? Probably not. So if the Arnold is losing money and they're going to cut divisions, those are the divisions they're going to cut, are the divisions that are not selling tickets. And I would wager those are probably the divisions selling the least amount of tickets. Classic physique, men's open bodybuilding, probably the two biggest drivers of ticket sales. I would say of the women's divisions, bikini and wellness would probably be the two biggest drivers of ticket sales, because I think bikini is like the most attainable looking physique. It has the broadest fan base in terms of amateur competitors and girls that want to compete. And also it's the most attractive girls. And I think wellness is kind of that lower body. It's like the glute division. I feel like that's kind of what's in right now. I think those are the two biggest drivers in ticket sales for women. And they cut the lowest driver, or what they thought was the lowest driver for men, which was 212. So I don't think it's controversial at all. I think they're trimming away the divisions that aren't making money, and maybe they'll bring some of these divisions back when they are a more lucrative show in the future. But right now, with the economy, everybody's hurting, and with the trend of the past couple of years, I'm sure the Arnold has been hurting. But as always, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Now, the final story that I've got for you guys today, Patrick Moore updates us on an injury that he had in April of 2022, so this year, and it kind of answers the question as to why we haven't seen Patrick compete, why we haven't seen him post much, and why we haven't really seen many updates at all of him recently on his Instagram or any social media channels. So he says in this post that on April 28th, 2022, he completely ruptured his Achilles tendon, and he says that at that time he felt like his career was over, and this was like his first major injury. Then on May 10th, 2022, he had surgery to repair it, and now he's 14 weeks post-operation. And he says it's such an amazing feeling to be back almost 100%. And the fact is that unexpected storms will always come, but eventually they'll pass, and you have to make sure that you're ready. You owe it to yourself to get back on track, even if you get knocked off. And he says he'll be back in 2023. So that kind of answers the question of where Patrick Moore has been. I've had a lot of people ask me if I thought that Patrick was done competing, done with bodybuilding. And I think he's answering that question here, that he's not, and he will be back next year. So that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the bodybuilding coverage. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.
Dancing in the good light, everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine and natural sight. Dancing in the good light, everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine and natural sight. Everybody's dancing